Good luck, mate.
What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, back here for another panel show. And yes, you guessed it right. Today we are talking everything Antonio Conte. We've got Sim, as per usual, to my left. We've got Sava, first time on the panel. How you doing, Sava?
I'm good, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on. What a great week to come on.
Yeah, exactly. With the fire burning around the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, it was only right to get you on, Sava. And we've also got Sean Butler as well. Sean, how you doing, mate?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. Always a pleasure to be with you beautiful people. And yeah, it's going to be no doubt another fiery, controversial panel show. So I'm excited.
Selfish, Sean. You're selfish.
I'm excited to play my usual devil's advocate, the bad guy on the show. I can't wait to be called
Sean,
out.
I don't want to be hearing no alibis. I don't want to be hearing no excuses for the players. Come on, let's get straight into it anyway. And let's go into our first question. And that is, did he go too far with his comments in that press conference after that game against Southampton? We'll start with you, Sava. What are you feeling? Did he go too far?
No, I felt like I don't know, it felt like a bit of a mishmash of comments aimed towards everyone, but no one. I think, look, what's happened from my point of view, I think a lot of people have read into this whatever they want to read into it, Ben. So I think if you are very much Levy and Enoch out, it was, oh my God, he's called out the board. I think if you're not, it was, oh my God, he's called out the players. And I think it's probably the truth, as always, probably lays somewhere in the middle there. Look, he definitely landed some, if we're going to look at this in boxing terms, he absolutely knocked the players out, right? But when it came to talking about the owners, I felt like there were a few little jabs to the body, but not enough to actually say, here's how I 100% feel. And then obviously, you know, we've heard in the last 24 hours that he's clarified to the board that, oh, it wasn't about you. It was about the players. It wasn't about you. So did he go too far? No, I would have loved to. I'll be honest, listen, it's difficult for me to say because I don't want him as the manager of the club. But I've also said he would be my hero, right? My absolute hero if he literally had dropped the mic, walked out and said, I am leaving. I can't work for the owners. Then I go, right, who's building a statue of this man outside the ground? But as it stands, it feels like he's in a kind of halfway house of, yeah, it was a nice rant, but what does it actually mean? Like, I don't really know at the moment. So I'm a bit on the fence with it all.
Yeah, I think, like, for me, listening to that press conference, I thought it was mainly aimed at the players, but there was definitely digs into the ownership in there as well. But it was mainly to do with the players. But Sean, how are you feeling about the whole situation? Do you think he went too far?
It's a weird one. It's a super complex talking point, I think, to break down. And everybody, I agree with Sav in that people are coming at it from their predetermined, maybe confirmation biases. And I think that I agree with Sav again, however you stand is probably going to support your narrative either way. For me personally, though, I think that just to try and think of it as, was he good? Was he right or was he wrong? I think, or was it a good thing or a bad thing? I think is a little bit too simplistic. I think you have to kind of, for me personally, my opinion on it has kind of merged over the weekend and like sort of reshaped into right now where I'm at with it. Is that
a Havana I see?
No, it's not a Havana. It's definitely, maybe it is a Havana. I don't know. Flip flop. I feel like for me personally, I think there's four angles to it, right? Like the first of it is the content of his comments, like whether what he said was right or whether it wasn't. And I think what he said, he was right in what he said, but I think that there was gaps in what he said. What he didn't say was also a problem. Like he didn't go as far. If you're going to go out there and throw and set the house on fire, then you need to really, if you're going to be taken seriously, I think you need to include all the things that are the problem at the moment. And for me, like I always say, there's a pizza pie of blame. Everyone gets a slice. Some slices are bigger than others, but on this particular occasion, he decided to go after one slice, not all of the slices in the players. And so he was right what he said, but he didn't say enough about the other areas that are the problem with Tottenham. But there's where I have a problem with what he said was around the timing of it. Like, why now? Why not after the Milan game? Why not, if you've got a problem generally, and you want to try and invoke some sort of output, some sort of positive catalyst from it, why not take the opportunity to say it after a good result and say, this is the result, this is the kind of mentality I want to see. After Man City, after Chelsea, after West Ham, I saw the fire in their eyes today. Now I want to see them go further. But he waited until a bad moment, and the bad moment shouldn't really have been a bad moment, because the VAR decision, which was ultimately, for me, the difference between 3 points and 1 point. Now, we can argue all day long about whether we did enough to win the game, but ultimately the VAR decision flew by the wayside. It never got any real critical evaluation, because everyone's now focusing on Conte's comments rather than that particular thing. And so I found it a really weird timing situation as to why he did it. I also don't like the fact that he did it. So the third point is the distribution of his comments, right? Why do it in the media? Why do it in that scenario? Like, apparently there's crisis talks that are happening this week or whatever with the club. Isn't that the better environment to call out the players rather than doing it in the public and shaming people? Do it if you've got a point to make there. Do it in front of them. Bring the board, bring the coaches, bring everyone together, and do it behind the scenes and try and get a better reaction. So I'm not a fan of the platform in which he distributed the comments. And the last point I'll make quickly on it is I'm unclear as to what his desired outcome is. Like, is it because he wants the sack, or is it because he wants some sort of like resurgence? He wants the players to fight back. And to me personally, you got the carrot or the stick. I think he's gone for the stick. Obviously, it's clear he's gone for the stick, but I'm not sure if you're criticizing the general mentality of the team, not like the individuals on the game. If he said, like, on this particular occasion, yeah, we were sloppy here, this player did this wrong or whatever, even if he isolated players or isolated the team for making mistakes in the moment, that's one thing. But to criticize the general 20-year thesis or ethos of a football club, players that have been, sorry, I'm not sure, I've lost you there. The 150 players that have come through the system, and it's always the players that have got this problem. I'm not sure what outcome he's looking for, because I don't see any positives that are going to come from this.
In terms of the timing, Sean, of the comments made, I kind of feel like it's comments that he's wanted to make for a while, and I feel like it's just built up inside of him, and it just blew after this particular game. And I feel like it's just a circumstance of after a certain series of events, to be honest. And we all know Antonio Conte, Italian, fiery character, and this can happen with him. And it has happened with him in the past. I know it's not exactly the same circumstances, but we saw after the Burnley game last year, he just blew up and went on a mad run after that game. And then we went on a really good run after that. But this one does seem a bit different, really singling out the players and seeing what can come out of that. But Sim, what are you feeling about the whole thing?
Yeah, for me, I think he was like, he's at his wit's end with the players and the culture of the club, and I think that he's seen when the going gets tough within the dressing room, that the players always tend to crumble. When you look at the boardroom, we bring in managers that want to win big things, but then we don't what's called our words speak are louder than our actions. We speak like we want to win big things, but we don't act like we want to win big trophies. And I think that he's just, for a long time, I know there's been rants in between since he's taken over 18 months ago, but I think for a long time he's tried to encourage a lot of the players. He's said, like, Eric Dyer, I believe he could be one of the best centre backs in Europe and stuff like that.
Didn't he say something similar about Davinson Sanchez once?
He's tried to be like giving a lot of the team confidence and trying to instill a mentality, but at the end of the day, you can only what's the phrase? You can only take a horse to water. That's it, but you can't force them to drink it. And I think the players, I think he's asking them to take
also,
some bloody responsibility.
You catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar.
Well, there you go. Perfect analogy. So we need more. So we say we need more honey. I'm not sure what I'm trying to say there. We're giving him too much vinegar. But But I think it's about time these players stop throwing managers under the bus constantly and actually take some responsibility. That is what he's saying in his press conference. I think for me, I think time after time in big moments in this football club over the last few years, these players have not taken isn't anywhere near enough responsibility on the football pitch. There is nowhere near enough leadership among this squad, and there's not enough desire to really dig in deep and fight for each other and leave everything on the football pitch. And I think he's calling out that kind of mentality where I mean, you could argue. I mean, some people argue that stems from the manager, but I think when
I argue that.
You can argue that, but when it's manager after manager and managers who have been successful with their methods at many other clubs and won big trophies, you got to start to question at what point is it not completely the manager's fault. And a lot of these players who have been here a long time have to take a large responsibility on the pitch about how they where their mentality is at and how much do they want to win. Conte has said apparently to some sources that he's really angry that a lot of these players in the squad that aren't as obsessed as he is about winning and aren't as drilled and don't have the mentality that winning is everything, and they're very happy being mediocre and they're happy.
Isn't that his job, Sim? Isn't that what his job is for £15 million a year? Mm-hmm. Right. If his job isn't to correct that mental aptitude issue, and his job is more aligned to just picking a tactic, picking a formation, picking a squad, and over time, we've seen that essentially nothing changes in that regard, right? He picks the same 3-4-3. He picks the same 11 predominantly, unless there's a fitness issue. Then isn't his... If that's all he's getting, if that's all his remit is to do, then is he really worth 15 million quid? Surely if he is this elite manager with this mentality monster, then isn't part of his 15 million pound pay packet to try and figure out what is going on with the mentality of the players and try and instill some of that, like distribute some of that winning mentality that he has into those 11 players or that 25 to get the job over the line?
100%, it is part of his job, but you can only deal with what you have. And at the end of the day, what he has is a squad that can probably challenge or get into the top four, and that is probably the limits to what he has. And that's what we're doing. He got us top four last season. We're challenging for the top four this season. Like he is not happy when he's challenging for top four. He wants more than that. He wants a side that can actually go and challenge for a league title and actually challenge for serious things. That's what motivates him. That's what he wants to strive for. And he's unhappy when the culture and the players around him and are not striving for the same thing. They're happy to be mediocre, and that has been the case. So I think this season he's getting increasingly frustrated at things that are holding us back. And I think what's holding us back is a lot of the quality and the mentality of this team. And I think he can only do so much. He's only human.
Sim,
There's only so much he can do.
Let Sava come in here.
Can I interject on that though? Well, listen, I want to keep it fair, right? And look, I'll make it really clear to however many people watching the show. Look, I don't particularly like Conte as a manager. He was never the right choice for me, but we'll come back onto that later. But the key thing here is, for me, is when we're saying he can only do so much with these players, when you actually look at the games in the last 5 that we've not managed to win, there's no excuses. We're talking about Southampton that are bottom of the league, Sheffield United's B team, Wolves who were bottom 3 or bottom 4 at the time and hadn't won for how long and only scored like 9 league goals at home, AC Milan who get beaten week in, week out in Serie A, right? But every time he loses a game, it's all the players. But then when we win a game, it's a tactical masterclass from Conte. And the thing for me is there doesn't seem to be consistency across that from fans. Yep. And that is what frustrates me. I think if we're going to say, oh my God, look, we beat Chelsea 2-0 and West Ham 2-0. He's a genius. Everyone's singing Antonio. All right, cool. But then we're saying that it seems to me that he's the only manager I've ever seen at Spurs that has to take zero accountability for when we don't win these games. Now, I'm not blaming him fully, guys, right? Mm-hmm. The fact that I don't like his style of football is I won't lie. I'm not going to sit here and lie that I do. I don't. Sean knows that more than anyone. I don't like his style of football. But there's been other managers I don't like their style of football. But other managers that could have won these games, right? But other managers that when they lost these types of games, right, got absolutely pelted by the fans, right? Jose, every time Jose lost a game like this, right, every time it was, he's a dinosaur, get out our club. But with Conte, who's got a better squad than Jose had, but with Conte, it's It's not the manager, it's the players. Same with AVB. Nuno.
Conte's doing a much better job than Jose did as well.
Because he's got a much better squad. It's not rocket science. Jose Mourinho had Kane and Son.
The fact of the matter is he is doing a better job. Yeah, fine. He does have a better squad. Conte is not blameless in this situation. Nobody's saying that. And I
agree.
don't think...
I think a lot are, though, Ben. A lot are saying he's blameless.
I think that...
He's not blameless.
I think that when this argument comes across and when people want to back Conte, they're not bringing up the blames that Conte should be thrown at. I agree with that. But when you're looking at the portion of blame, Conte comes in here with the least amount of portion, in my opinion.
I don't buy that at all.
ENIC and Daniel Levy at the top. Do you agree with that?
I agree with that.
And the players.
Well, hang on. So why? On what? On the fact that we can't beat Southampton? On the fact we can't beat Sheffield United? I don't think ENIC and Daniel Levy should take the lion's share of the blame for that.
Manchester United just drew Southampton as well.
Yeah, but they beat they beat Southampton 1-0 away at the the Southern Stadium earlier.
And they had 10 men for an hour.
We've won one game in Southampton in the last 7 years.
Right, but my point is that when you're saying that Daniel Levy and ENIC they are required to take the lion's share of the blame, I'm asking you on what? Is it?
I'll tell you why.
Because they employ a manager. They employ managers like Jose Mourinho and Antonio Conte, and they fail to give them the right tools to succeed in the job to the standard.
We spent
that they
400. We spent the fourth highest amount of money. It's not irrelevant. It's not irrelevant.
It is irrelevant how much money we spent. What is relevant is the caliber of players and in the right positions that we are bringing in. We spent 60 million on Richarlison, and whatever you say about me being happy about Richarlison coming in is also irrelevant because that 60 million was better placing it on a centre back.
I agree.
That could have come in.
But whose decision was that?
I don't know whose decision that was. I don't think it was Conte's decision.
Well, listen, if there's a suggestion that Conte is not part of any transfer negotiation around the table that Paratici and Daniel Levy are having. If there's an idea going around, and I think there might be with some kind of areas, pockets of the community, that the three of them get together, Daniel Levy, Paratici, and Antonio Conte, before, during, and throughout every transfer window, and says, what is it that we need? What is it that we want? And then everybody comes to some agreement. And then at the end of it, Daniel Levy says, thanks very much, tears that whole thing up, and then goes, Everton, there's an opportunity to buy Richarlison. I'll drop 60 million quid. I just don't buy that. And I think that it's a very simple argument. It's a lazy argument to sit there and think, because there's been a consecutive series of failures from manager after manager, that we're looking for the lowest common denominator because we don't know where else to put the blame. I think it's a far more complex argument. And yet people want to just hand it over to Daniel Levy. And I don't think when it comes to the ability to win, to compete for the top honours, I think that Daniel Levy's risk tolerance is absolutely the issue. His ability to go that one step further is absolutely an issue. And I will 100% own that. But the inability to get past Nottingham Forest, to get past Sheffield United, to get past Milan over 2 games and not score a single goal is not just down to the fact that we didn't buy any defenders in the windows.
How do you explain all the other poor games under previous managements that
I've got an answer for this. I keep hearing it's almost like the stock phrases are coming out from people, right? I've heard this for days. Right. My problem is with Antonio Conte. And by the way, I've seen people in the chat saying Sava just hates Conte. I hate the owners, right? I hate Conte. And I hate Paratici. Sean, you know this. I hate all three in equal measures. I think the whole thing stinks. But the question was about Antonio Conte. If you ask me a question about the owners, I will also answer about the owners and Paratici. I'm trying to be fair here. If you look at these, right, whenever you say, oh, yeah, but Conte has lost now. If you look at cup competitions, guys, Conte's been knocked out by Mura, Middlesbrough, Sheffield United, Nottingham Forest, and a very average Milan team, right? Right. That's 5 tournaments, right? Now, yeah, Poch lost a few. Poch lost to Colchester. Poch lost to Ghent, one of the two. Mm-hmm. Jose lost to Norwich. Jose lost to Dynamo Zagreb, whose manager was in jail or whatever at the time, if you'll remember that. Mm-hmm. But what everyone keeps forgetting, Ben, is that those 2 managers also didn't get knocked out when they got to finals, right? Conte is every single cup competition. Conte is going out early doors. Now, the reason people said he was coming in here was because he was a winner, but yet he's getting knocked out to very poor teams every time. Now, am I blaming him entirely for that? No, there's clearly some sort of systemic issue at Spurs, but the other managers at times found a way to get around that. But what we do is we cherry pick with Poch. People, you could have gone, well, Poch got to 2 FA Cup semi-finals, a League Cup final and a Champions League final. But what we've done is we've cherry picked and gone, well, Poch lost to Colchester, right? Same with Jose. We're cherry picking the ones he got knocked out to, but not when he made a final. My worry with Conte is he never seems to be able to get through. And he's got a better squad than Jose had.
And Saba, this season was the easiest season ever because of the variance that occurs in cup competitions where you don't the luck of the draw, who you get pitted against, who your competition gets pitted against. This season offered up for us 3 different tournaments that turned out to have no real competition for anybody to get anywhere because of the way that the variance in the cup draws came up, and we got knocked out at pathetic stages of all of them. And that is down. It can't not be down to the manager.
Yeah,
I think it's equal.
He has
There has
to
to be
take
equal
criticism
blame.
for that for 100%, especially when
Agreed.
Sheffield United are taking their B team. Doesn't mean that Conte is perfect. Obviously, in that game against Sheffield United, all of us wanted Spurs to go strong, play our best team, because we knew the FA Cup was an opportunity. The fact of the matter is, he's not judged by the hierarchy on his FA Cup performances. He's judged on getting top 4. That's the reality. So why wouldn't he rest players when in that kind of situation?
But I don't agree. Like, the people that want him in are often the people that want the owners out, right? Would you agree that there's like when it comes to like the agendas, if you like, for want of a better word, of people within the community, most often people that are Conte in are Levy out, and most often people that are Conte out are a little bit less stingent, less kind of like demanding with their Levy
not
out.
me, Sean.
I know you're nuke the whole system.
Clear the ranks, mate. All of them.
Yeah,
Nuke all, Saba. Nuke all.
Where
Absolutely.
Yeah, go
So
on.
the people that are defending Conte for the cup exits are the same people that blame Levy for the lack of trophies. So
Say that again, Sean.
the people that are defending Conte, regardless of what's happened, irrespective of the unnecessary and ridiculous cup exits, are the same people that hate Daniel Levy for the lack of trophies.
Yeah.
So is there not like a complete contradiction in the opinion stance there that like if you're defending Conte and yet you're also upset about the lack of trophies, then why aren't you angry with Conte for taking the cups more seriously? And the argument that he's not judged on a trophy and therefore he had no pressure, or maybe even given like a nudge, wink, wink by Daniel Levy to rest players. I don't believe for a second that actually happened.
That judge Conte on winning a
Sean.
trophy is us as fans. That's the only people that judge Conte on not winning.
Sure, I'm not saying he gets a nudge. I'm not saying he gets a nudge from Levy. You should rest players because we want you to get top 4. But he knows if he gets to if he wins an FA Cup and finishes 8th, or if he gets top 4 and doesn't win the FA Cup, which one's he more likely to keep his job? Getting top 4.
True.
So that's so he's going to have that in mind when he has that selection. He's got a big game on the weekend, which he did end up losing anyway. But he's got a game on the weekend in the Premier League, which he needs points to keep up in the top 4 race. He's got a game in midweek where he's playing a lower league opposition in the FA Cup. He's going to rest some of his players. We know Kane's been playing a lot. All these players have been playing a lot. So he's going to rest his players in view of trying to get back into, trying to have a better position in the top 4 race, because that's what his job really depends on. If he goes out in the FA Cup, the fans might be pissed, which we are pissed, and I am fuming that we didn't take the opportunity. But at the end of the day, that's not his remit. His remit is to get into the top 4 and get the Champions League money. That's his remit of the job, and that's going to play into his selection. So I don't think it's Levy calling up saying rest players, but I just think naturally it will. That's what he's talking. Maybe that's what he's talking about when it comes to the culture of the club.
Okay, but if money is the overriding driver, then it's far more easy to find the quick 15 million quid by qualifying out of the Milan game into the quarterfinals. That's what you get for getting that extra qualification. And yet people will still defend Conte for the absolutely abhorrent substitutions that he made during that game when we get Romero sent off and he doesn't bring on Danjuma and he takes off Decky for Sanchez. Right, so people the same. Like I say, there's the same argument that the people that want to defend Conte and say that he can't do any wrong. And I'm not suggesting that you two are doing that, but there is an element of people that want to put there's no slice of pie that goes towards Antonio Conte. They'll overlook that they'll remind everybody that the reason why the cups aren't important is because it's all about the money. Champions League money for getting into the last 8 is 25% of even qualifying fourth in the first place, and yet they won't criticize Conte for making that ridiculous decision when you're defending a 1-0 deficit in the Champions League. You go down to 10 men and you don't put on it. Sorry, you're going, Sab.
Can I just ask a question, guys? For me, guys, I think what's happening here is it does very much feel that everything needs to be you're either in one camp or another, right? And if you say anything, so for example, I'm saying things about Conte now because we haven't talked about the owners yet. And I get, oh my God, you must be Levy in. It's like, this is ridiculous. You're allowed to think more than one thing. More than one thing can be true at once, right? Do I absolutely despise the owners? Yes. Does that mean I have to automatically then want Conte to be my manager at Spurs? No, it doesn't. Right, 2 things, 3 things, 1,000, 1,000,000 things can be true at once. My worry with all of this is, I think what the rant on Saturday has done, I think it's good that he ranted. I wish it had been done in a more controlled manner and actually had a target. So if it had been about the board, have the press conference, have it aimed at the board, then don't retract it the next day when you meet with the board, right? Have the meeting, drop the mic, walk out, throw everyone under the bus, and we all go, yeah, well done, mate. The problem is this. Everyone feels that they've got to be in a camp. And if you're in more than one camp, you get told that you're flip-flopping.
You're a flip-flop, yeah.
Right? But at the end of the day, I think the owners have done a dreadful job in terms of making us a winning football club. I don't think anyone can argue that. Whether that was their goal or not is a completely separate situation, conversation.
It wasn't, I'll tell you that.
Of course it wasn't. Of course it wasn't. So on that front, on the football front, it's failed, right? But they also told us what they were going to do. I think Paratici has spent the money dreadfully. If I'm honest, I think he spent something like 300 million since he's been here in 4 windows or whatever it is. And I think he's brought in, of the 17, a lot of dross. Then I look at Conte. So I think we're going to talk about this later. For me, should never have been appointed in the first place. It just didn't make sense. And this is what many people predicted would happen. What we're seeing right now.
Savo, one question I want to ask you. As you were talking about, his rant on Saturday, and you said you liked it. I just want to ask, do you think that his comments about the Spurs, some of the Spurs players not being committed to the badge and not having the passion, is that hypocritical of him to say when he won't sign a contract? Or he won't not sign a contract when he won't even talk about his future, he won't commit his future. Is that hypocritical then him to question commitment of the players?
I think when anybody answers this question, we're doing it without knowing facts. Yeah, we're all assuming, aren't we, that we're assuming that Levy's put a contract in front of him and the guy has said, no, I'm not doing this until the summer.
No, fine, but one thing is a fact, is that whenever he's asked about his future, he's always very coy and he'll never say anything.
I agree. I agree, but
he's always asking for patience as well.
Of course, listen, I think that it goes down to a number of things. Guys, first and foremost, let me throw it back, right? The guy signed an 18-month contract. Mm-hmm. He signed an 18-month contract that was brilliant for both parties at the time. It was brilliant for Daniel Levy to take heat off himself after the whole Nuno debacle. And it was brilliant for Conte because there were no top jobs available and Tottenham are coming along going, here you go, there's 15, 20 million a year. You don't even have to win anything. What a nice, easy job, right? But now everyone's going, oh my God, we're going to get another manager in. It's like, well, yeah, the guy signed an 18-month contract. What did everyone expect? Right? I don't think it's hypocritical. What I do think is that I think he's come into this club. I don't know how this keeps happening, but like Jose, and they've realised just how bad some of these players are. And they've realised that it's a bigger job that is not what they do. And what I mean by that, guys, is simple. There are managers that are build managers. Yeah? Chuck in a manager, you go 4 or 5 years, go and build something. Then you have win now managers. Right? Antonio Conte, for example, if he had joined this club when Poch finished second and couldn't get over the line, right? Conte would have been your guy. You're bringing him in with a great 11, saying sprinkle 3 or 4 players to the squad. Conte's going to win you something. Conte has joined Tottenham when we were a shambles, right? And now people are wondering, oh my God, Conte didn't realise the job he had on his hands. Well, yes, because he's not used to this. these pressures that he's under now to build, to develop poor players, isn't what he's used to. Last thing I'd say on this, guys, sorry for the rant. Last thing I'd say on this is equally, when we talk about just back him and he's not being given the tools to do his job, with Tottenham, right? We have to, I know we all love our club and we all want to think we're amazing and we can get whatever player we want. We can't. The rumours coming out from the club, guys, and you guys speak to Danny Kiriakou. How you guys have him on the show. Danny will tell you.
Yeah.
Exactly, right? Exactly, right? But Danny will tell you, and loads of people were saying in the summer, Conte only wanted Bastoni or Vardial, and if he couldn't get those two, he wanted to wait till this summer. Okay, that's great. But now I'm a realistic fan. Bastoni don't want to leave, right? And Vardial, when he does leave, is not joining Tottenham Hotspur. I don't want to break that bad news to people. He's the most sought-after defender in world football. He's not joining Tottenham Hotspur. He's going to go somewhere on 500 grand a week, like the Bernabeu, right? Or like the Etihad. So if that is Conte saying, these are the only two I want, wait till next year, this is what I mean. There's so much we don't know, but I think the whole thing's a mess. I don't know where I'm going with it, guys. I think the whole thing's a mess.
It's
just a mess.
On the comments, right? I know we've got to probably move on to the next topic. But the one thing I think would be clear to everyone is we don't know what the future holds. But in a situation as unlikely as it is that he turns around in a week's time and there's news comes out saying he signed a new contract, then all of what he said on Saturday, everyone should get behind it, get on board it and say it's an amazingly positive step, right? If he is someone that says, I'm calling this out, but I'm on board with the fix. My ambitions are up here. Tottenham Hotspur are here. The players are the mentality of the players is a problem, but I am behind the club. I'm going to get on board. Me and Daniel Levy have had a chat. I'm committing for the next 2.5 years. Then what happened on Saturday is going to be looked back on, reflected on as a wonderful thing. But if he doesn't, then it's just a parting shot that doesn't help anyone. And when he's calling players selfish, it's kind of a selfish thing in his own right.
Can I ask, Sean, who's selfish? Because in all of this, I keep hearing it's the same players for the last 5 managers, which isn't true, right? If we really look at the squad, Kane and Son, yes, but are we saying Kane and Son are the problem? If not, you're talking about maybe 3 players. You're talking about 3 players. You're talking about Davis, Dyer, and who else?
No, I think the selfish element of it had to be at the players that don't pass. It had to be aimed at the forward line, right?
You think so?
Yeah, I think so. Because the defensive players, I don't think are being selfish. I think they're just being incompetent.
No,
but
it might be
the
on the forward
line.
I don't know if it was about players not passing, because I think he was talking about when being selfish. How I understood it is like the team working for each other when it comes to fighting for each other, when it comes to defending a result, when it comes to like when we're 3-1 up, making sure no more goals are going in and everyone doing the running for each other. And I think that's for how.
Well, that second goal, there was 7 Tottenham players in the penalty area. Right. I don't know how that mistake is selfish. That's just incompetence. Right?
But how many of the 11, Sean? How many of the 11 that ended the game? When I keep hearing it's the same players for 5 years, how many of that 11 at the end of the pitch? At the end of the game, were here when apparently throwing Pochettino under the bus.
This isn't just about one game. This is about a problem that's been here for many years. This isn't just about this Southampton game.
But it's not always the same players, Ben, is it? So if you look at the team at the weekend, for example, right? If you look at that team, we ended the game with Perisic, brand new, Porro, brand new, Longley, brand new, Romero, everyone raves about. The only defender that was left from before was Dyer, Forster, brand new, right? We ended that game, I think, with Sarr in midfield and Højbjerg. Højbjerg's been there, 3 years?
Sarr's brand new.
Right. Kulu ended the game brand new. Kane and Son. So when we talk about it's the same group of players for the last 4 or 5 years,
I don't think he can make an aspersion to say over 20 years the players at Tottenham have been selfish.
Yeah, but actually,
you can only make that assertion about what you've experienced, right? So he's only known 18 months.
But when you look at all these games that you're talking about, these Sheffield United games, these Mura games, these Zagreb games, all these games over the past 5 or 6 years that we've completely flopped in games that we should be battering, it is all the same culprits. It's the same culprits that play every single time. Dyer's always at the back. Davis is always at the back. Lucas is always there. You're always talking about the same
Kane and
culprits
Sonny.
every
Then don't
single
play
time.
them. Then don't do that.
Well, Ben, it's interesting you didn't mention Kane and Sonny. They're always there too, right?
No, not specifically, no.
What do you mean, no? Like, they've been there. They've been
They
there
didn't
for
play
10
at
years.
Colchester. They didn't play at Mura, I don't think. They didn't play at... Son played at Sheffield United. In a lot of those games, those two weren't present.
But in the majority of the Premier League games where we underperform, they are always there.
Yeah.
So, I know we're taking the
But
extreme examples.
in the Premier League, we're hitting our targets. We're in the top 4.
Right, but when we get beaten on the individual game against a team who's in the bottom 3, it's almost as embarrassing as losing to Sheffield United in the cup, right?
And Kane played 90 minutes for Mura, apparently.
There you go. Kane played 90 minutes
Kane
against
did
Mura.
play Mura,
he
but
scored,
you know what
yeah.
I'm trying to say, though? Kane, a lot of those games, Kane didn't play in.
I hear you, but okay, let me ask you a question then, Ben. What's the problem then? I think a lot of fans would accept this. Like, we've got 4 very different opinions in this panel, right? Would you guys accept this? If we play Sheffield United then, or Nottingham Forest B team, right? And instead of putting out Dyer, Sanchez and Davis, we put out Charlie Sayers, right? You put out another young centre-half, Alfie Dorrington or whatever. You put out Niall John. You put out the kids and say, look, this really isn't our focus, but I'll tell you what, go on, kids. Go and play with passion, energy, drive. But he still does the same thing every game. Davis, Dyer, Sanchez, they still do it. Like, why not? Yeah, someone's put in the chat, Fagan Walcott. Why not do that?
We're throwing Davies and Dyer under the bus for those games, but Davies and Dyer are also mainstays in the team that get us to 4th last season. I get annoyed by the distribution of blame. It's not always the defence. The reason why we got kicked out of the cup competitions is not just because we conceded more goals than we conceded a goal. It's because we didn't score any. But yet the blame is always about the defence. And Davies and Dyer are good enough to take us to 4th last year. They're good enough to have got us to 4th so far this year. I don't accept, for me personally, I don't accept that it's just a lazy argument to always point to certain individuals, whether it's Daniel Levy, Davies or Dyer. I find it frustrating that certain elements of the Tottenham Hotspur ecosystem always get thrown under the bus and others get away with murder.
Who's getting away with murder?
I think Conte gets away with murder. I think Paratici gets away with murder. I think Sonny gets away with murder. I think Decky this season's got away with murder. I think Højbjerg doesn't get enough criticism. I think Perisic, I think that, there's the occasional on the occasional
fair amount of criticism right now.
I think, but yeah, I just generally think that there's an overwhelmingly disproportionate amount of allocation of accountability, and I think everyone, like I always say, I said it already on the show. Pizza supplier blame. Everyone gets the slice, but it doesn't get it in equal measure as much as it should.
I'd agree with that.
Look, I think somebody in your chat has just made a wonderful point and said this conversation.
Levy, sorry, I forgot Daniel Levy out of that.
This conversation alone.
Levy, surely. Go on, Sava.
Yeah, I was just going to say, this conversation alone, as somebody in your chat said, it just sums up our fan base, doesn't it? It sums us all up. We're all so torn. I think that I think this gets lost, right? I think there's so much need for everyone to be right and their own idea and ideology to be right. We all want success, right? Mm-hmm. I think we all acknowledge that we're nowhere near success. We all want success, but we've all got different ideas as to what is the breakdown to stop us getting there. At the end of the day, I'll go back to this. If you employ a win now manager, you have to be ready to win now. That is why I always said, guys, this was never, ever the right fit. Ever. And everyone just thought, oh my God, world-class manager. Cool. But look at the players he's had at other clubs. It's like bringing Pep Guardiola here. Yeah, I love Pep Guardiola and his coaching? Sure. If he came to Tottenham, am I expecting him to win the league with Tottenham? No, I am not, right? No, we might play a bit better football, but I'm not expecting to win. And this is what people can't understand, lads. When I say, look, Conte isn't for me, that's my opinion, right? That's my right to have that opinion that he's not for me. what I'm not saying, and I'll say this right now, there's over 1,000 people watching this right now. I keep getting told that I believe that a new manager comes in and wins something with these players. That's not what I believe at all. I don't believe we're anywhere near the line, gentlemen. I really don't. But what I do believe is that this club needs a manager that isn't a win now manager and that will work to the strategy of the club. Now, whether we like that strategy or not, right, is a conversation over here. But Conte told us they want younger players on lower salaries, right? He is not that guy. So love him, hate him, whatever with Conte, the same with Jose. There's no point them being at the club. Give it to a young, hungry manager that wants to build, that wants to grow, right? And then when we get towards the line, that's when you go, right, who's my win now manager to get me over the line?
Right.
But everything
No, but
needs to be
obviously
vitriolic.
But I understand that, Sava, and I'm not saying, and I think you're absolutely spot on, to be honest, but you can understand, surely, fans' frustrations when we've had so many projects and so many this and so many that. It's like, can we have just one manager who can get us a trophy? And we like, Mourinho, how many trophies does he have to win to prove he can win a trophy? Conte, how many trophies does he have to win to prove we can win a trophy? Can we not just have a manager come in now and win us a trophy? And then I think people are just frustrated. That's why fans are frustrated. They will do anything to win a trophy, anything. And that's why we're sick of projects. We're not. I don't say we're. I say a lot of fans are sick of just having more and more projects. But you're right. It's probably what we need, but we don't like to know it. Huh?
One more project.
But
one
Sim,
more.
but hang on. This is another thing Spurs fans say. I don't believe that we've had a project. A project would be
apart
getting
from
a manager.
You have to admit, a Poch was a project.
Yeah. Poch was a project. Yeah, and 6 years we saw 6 years. I don't think you can call Antonio Conte a project.
No,
right?
That's what he's saying.
At the end of the day, I agree with you, Sim. I don't look. I'd look like people in the chat here crack me up, having a laugh, going, "How much are Levy and co paying you to lower your expectations?" It's not lowering my expectations. It's the reality of where we arrive at. We are not. No manager's coming in and winning something immediately with this club. No manager. But what's the point in hiring managers that want Bastonis and Vardials and Lautaro Martinez's when they've got bigger options to go to? And it's a pipe dream, lads. It's a pipe dream when people say, pay the money, they'll come. Let's play a hypothetical game. You all let me know, right?
But wait a sec, Sava. Just aren't we signing the right caliber players in the Pedro Porros, the Couti Romeros, the Dejan Kulusevskis, the Rodrigo Bentancurs? Aren't they the right caliber of players? The right,
apparently not in the mentality, mate. Apparently not in the mentality, though, right?
I believe so with those, yes. But the problem that is always being talked about is the back line, right? And apparently the biggest word in football, Conte wants the elite of the elite at the back. So let me play a hypothetical game with you, lads.
Go on.
Daniel Levy wakes up tomorrow morning, right, or in the summer and goes, you know what? I'm feeling really generous, right? Really generous. Paratici, go and put a £100 million bid in for Vardiol, who's got a £95 million release clause, right? We go and offer 100 million. Within 30 seconds, his agent is on the phone to Madrid, City, Liverpool, Chelsea, going, Spurs have just bid that and the club have accepted. All those big clubs are going, hang on, this is a bloke we could have in our backline for a decade. They're all going to go and bid, right? Now you're in a position where him and his agent are sitting there going, all right, you've got all these bids, right? Now, I'm not belittling Spurs here, but straight away he's going to go, which ones do you want to get rid of? Well, hang on, I've got Real Madrid here that win Champions Leagues for fun and La Ligas. I've got Man City here. Chelsea plough money into thick clubs for fun. I've got PSG here who chuck money for fun.
He can go to a more successful club on better wages.
Right. This is my point,
in a nicer
Sean.
climate.
Sean, this is my point.
All day long. Yeah.
Even if he went to talk to Spurs, that he's going to go, right, Real Madrid have offered me 500 grand a week. What are you offering? Spurs are going to go, well, Kane's on 200. We'll offer you 200. I don't understand how people think those players are joining Tottenham Hotspur. It's just common sense.
You don't need those players though, right?
I agree with you. But that's just what people have been saying, right? That Conte wanted Bastoni or Vardial or nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that can't go on forever. Maybe that was the case last summer, but that can't go on forever. We need to keep going, and we need to keep going with the likes of the players I just mentioned in every position, pretty much. We can't just. He can't.
But he's
just be
calling
so
out the
stubborn to
mentality,
say
though,
those
Ben.
two players. It can't just be those two players.
This is the problem for me about his comments about that. Like, there's a mentality issue at Tottenham. Is that Tottenham have an ethos? There is only one game plan, only one philosophy that is being repeated to us all the time. Is that we live within our means and that we sign players that are young and that are talented that we can sign on for later on. How can if it's not the physicality that is the issue, it's the mentality that's the issue, and that you need winners. The argument that that Conte made about Man United go out and sign Casemiro, right? A born winner, pay 70 million quid for a 32-year-old or whatever it was. Tottenham aren't going to do that. Tottenham are only ever going to sign a 23, 24 or younger. How can you identify whether or not a player that is young and up and coming, that may have the physical acumen to be someone to look towards and think he's a top prospect? If you can't, how can you identify whether that player has a winning mentality? Like, even in the medical profession, there is a million different experts in a million different areas of the physical body. You've got a podiatrist who's an expert just in the foot. You've got orthopedic surgeons. You've got hand people, chiropractors. There's a million different ways to be an expert in the physical body. There's very few when it comes to the brain, like psychologists and psychiatrists, because people don't understand how that thing works like they do the physical body. So how can you and me as Tottenham fans and amateurs and all that stuff, how can Tottenham Hotspur identify unproven players that have all of the potential in the world? How can they identify whether or not they have the mental attributes to become a winner? If that is what the gap is, if Conte's calling out the mentality issue, how can Tottenham, who have a thesis and a philosophy of buying young, unproven talent, but with hot potential, how can they figure out whether or not those players are winners?
I don't think it's just a mentality issue. As much as he's calling out the mentality, I think it's a bit of both, and that creates the problem. I think it's mentality and quality that is holding us back 100%. So you have an issue where the mentality stops us from winning games that we should, but as well we also have a quality issue. So even if the mentality isn't there, you don't have the quality to make up for it. Like if you're lacking quality, you need to leave everything on the pitch to make sure you get the result, and we don't even do that. So that means that leads to things like Southampton 3-3 or Sheffield United 1-0, because it's kind of a both kind of thing. And he even said this, I can't remember after what game it was. I'm trying to remember what game it was, but he said it a few months ago. He was asked about the mentality of the team. I think it was at a pre-match press conference, and he said if the mentality was the only issue, it would be easier to solve. He said, implying that there's a quality issue as well.
Well, isn't that a flip-flop? Because on Saturday, he said, I don't want to talk about the tactics. Today's not about the tactics, which, by the way, I found incredibly convenient, because the one thing that he's responsible for, if not getting the best out of the players, is the tactics. But he wants to put that to one side.
We were 3-1 up with 15 minutes to go.
Yeah, and then he goes, today it's about a spirit. It's a mentality issue.
It was.
So, right. So 2 months ago, you're saying that he dismissed the problem. It's not if it's just a mentality issue, I can fix it. And on Saturday,
he never said there isn't a mentality issue. He just said if it was just mentality, that it would be easier to solve.
It's something that he can solve, right?
I guess so.
If it was just.
Right.
If it was just mentality, it would be easier to solve, he said.
But on Saturday, he was moaning about the spirit, the mentality of the players.
Why we didn't beat Southampton was mentality. Why we maybe didn't beat Liverpool at home is
it should have been easy to have prepared for it. It should have been easy to have prepared for it.
He was 3-1 up with 15 minutes to go.
Flip-flop.
Why is that? I don't understand the contradiction. Why is that a
flip-flop? To no one, Sean.
Why is that a flip-flop?
Everyone's a flip-flop.
Exactly. Everyone is a flip-flop. But look, I think we've kind of gone a bit off topic here, but
it's all on the topic.
Did Conte go too far? I think we could all say no, right?
Well, no, we all have our own opinion. Should we go back into the start again?
Moving on to the next one, we're going to say in that interview, was Conte trying to get himself sacked? We'll start with you, Sean.
Yeah, okay. A bit easier for me. I think he was. And here's my kind of rationale. It's a bit of a conspiracy theory, right? But I believe, I've heard lots of rumors that I don't know if this is true or not, but I'm not going to base my assertion on this, but here's just, in case you haven't heard it. The rumor is that He's got obviously 2 months left on his contract. However, there's obviously that extension, the option to extend. I've heard lots of rumors saying that if he gets fired inside the 18 months, that there is an immediate triggering of that clause, and then he would get paid out on the full additional year. So the argument to me is not so much was he trying to get sacked, but I think it's clear that there was a sackable offence there, and as much as finishing fourth right now looks very precarious, because I don't believe that the outcome from his comments is going to be positive. I think the players are going to down tools. You may see after the 2-week international break or the 1-week international break, you may see one little small rally where the players turn around and say, "I'll show you, that I'm not weak-minded or whatever." But after that, I think a lot of the players are going to be somewhat downing tools. And if you are criticising a bunch of players for their lacking mentality, and yet you're using the stick to do it, I don't think that you're basically going to get the outcome that you want. And so I do think he was looking for the sack. The fact that he hasn't got the sack, to me, suggests that there might be some truth to the idea that Tottenham don't want to sack him because they'll have to pay out, another year's contract, another year's 15 million quid salary or whatever. Because otherwise, it doesn't make sense. You could get the new manager's bounce if you brought someone in right now. The fact that he hasn't, to me, gives, like I say, some sort of veracity to the idea that there is that clause in his contract. I don't understand why Daniel Levy isn't currently looking, and if he's not, to me, it makes absolutely no sense to keep him in place, because the difference between top 4 and top 5, top 6, whatever else, is about 50 million quid. Right, if you finish fourth, you get an extra 50 million quid into your bucket for the transfer window. Top 4 is precarious anyway. There's 4 or 5 teams that are fighting for it. To me, it is the last swinging. It's like a punch-drunk boxer going down fighting, swinging haymakers, trying to take down everyone with him, but he knows that it's game over. I think he's fighting for the sack, but the fact that Daniel Levy and the board haven't done it yet, I think there's something else going on. There's an ulterior motive, or there's something in the background that is stopping them from doing it. Go on, mate. Sorry, Ben.
Let me ask you this, Sean. If he was looking for the sack, then why, with these rumours coming out saying that, he was just aiming it at the players and not the board, then why not tell Daniel Levy in that meeting that he was aiming it at both instead of just the players?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know. I mean, because I don't know. Maybe he doesn't want to have an uncomfortable. I don't know. It makes sense. It's a good point.
All right, next topic.
I hadn't thought that one through.
Brilliant.
Slam dunk, mother.
Drop the mic.
Sava, how are you feeling on this one?
Look, was he asking for the sack? Listen, I suppose we could look at many things he's done this season and go, this man wants the sack. I just think he cuts a very frustrated figure. I think he's realised he's joined the wrong club that could damage his brand. I truly believe that. He didn't learn from Jose. He should have learned from what happened to Jose. He didn't. Look, I don't know if he's angling for the sack, but I do get the feeling, guys, that if Daniel Levy was to ring him up and sack him, you get the feeling Conte would just have this huge weight off his shoulders and be like, oh, it's over. Like, I just kind of get that feeling that, I don't know. It's a circus. It's a circus. Every time we lose, Spurs seem to be the only club. We can't lose or draw a game and just go, oh, bad result, and crack on to the next week. Crisis. It has to be an explosive press conference. It has to be every player's terrible, the owner's terrible, the manager's. It can never just be, well, that's a bad result.
With a shitty VAR decision.
Right, yeah.
Can't be.
Right. It can't be like, and that's why I said, like, I thought what happened on Saturday, we've kind of not gone over the point that I thought we were outplayed by the bottom of the league, but we won't get into that now. But is he playing for the sack? I don't know. I can't see why he would be when he's got 2 months, 10 league games.
Yeah.
Just see it through. Let's be really, really honest. I think the worst thing that could happen to Spurs right now is we don't have a manager and then we have this whole messing about. But I think Sean is right. What we must be doing in the background now is looking for a manager. I'll be absolutely staggered if he is the manager next season. I can't see how this gets repaired. I can't see
And Saba, as we were saying on your show on Sunday, I think a couple of times last week, getting the new manager or getting the managerial situation sorted out now,
Has
it
to be done.
actually
Has to be
allows
done.
for the resolution of a lot of other kind of clouds that are hanging over Tottenham, because maybe Harry Kane's contract negotiations are dependent on knowing who he's going to play football for. And if that conversation can't happen until you know whether Conte's staying or going, then you have a chicken and the egg situation. On top of that, you have 8 returning loanees in the summer, and trying to find out whether they're going to be sort of necessary for any new potential manager, or whether we can find them new homes again. All of those things are going to be chicken and the eggs that start with figuring out whether Conte is going to be here or not.
We can't get a month into the summer and they're still negotiating if he's staying or not. We've got to hit the summer running, right? We can't be a month down the line. We don't know who the manager is. We don't know what style they're going to play. We don't know if it's a new manager, which players he wants to keep, which players he wants to get rid of, loan players coming back. So that's got to be sorted for me. Otherwise, it's another summer where we've messed about. But what I will say,
within
guys,
a week or two after the season finishing, literally, that's it.
I think they need to know. But I think
it's a late season as well, May 28th, right?
What I would say though, and I've said this very publicly again, I'll say it to the thousands of people watching this: if Conte is the guy, and if he is going to sign a contract, cool. My feelings for him as a manager go completely out the window. Fine, sign the contract. Let's get on with it. Sign the contract. But what I will say, guys, if Antonio Conte signs the contract, right, there can be none of this, the board, because this guy has now had an 18-month sample size of what is expected from him with what budget and how they operate. So for me, if he signs the contract, first of all, I think he's mad. If I was him, I'd go back to Italy or Atletico Madrid or somewhere where he'll be given what he wants and he'll win things. But if he does sign, fans like me turn around and go, cool, all right, you've signed. Now let's crack on with it. Now let's see what you're made of. Now let's finish off this process that we're in. But like you guys, as soon as I said, can you see any way in which he stays? Both of you were like in unison.
Yeah.
Can't see it, right?
At the moment, it's just because how Conte is. He more often than not in these kind of situations. He's been here before, and he a lot of the time. His second season at Chelsea, ended up leaving. Second season at Inter Milan, he ended up leaving. He did stay at Juventus for a few more years, but we've seen it before with Conte. These kind of cycles where he does end up just parting ways at the end of the season. For me, in terms of is he trying to get himself the sack? I think one comment that resonated with me, which tells me he wasn't, was at the end of the press conference where he said, in this situation, he said, believe me, you can want to change manager, and if they want to change manager, trust me, it won't change the situation, believe me. And that kind of tells me that he's not looking to get sacked right now. He's trying to say that the changing manager isn't going to change the situation for them. And I think that Conte was in the way he did his press conference yesterday. I don't think he was just looking for the sack. I just think he was a lot of pent up frustration over how the season has gone. And I don't think he was saying it so like begging the board to sack him. I just think he was getting a lot of things off his chest, in my opinion. And I think
we've
that
seen this
comment
before,
for me,
though, Tim, right?
Yeah, exactly. Definitely.
We've seen this at Juve. We've seen it at Inter. We've seen it at Chelsea.
Yeah.
And I remember Gary Neville last summer when Man United were looking for a manager. They were like, Gary, would you take Conte? And he went, no. They said, but like he's a winner. And he went, yeah, but if you look at his history in the second year at every club, this starts to happen. And that's when you think, God, if he's doing that with clubs that back him when he wins things, what's he going to be like working with Daniel Levy?
Yeah,
like
DestinyToFail.com.
This was...
But
this can't be a surprise.
Those clubs also threw him under the bus under certain circumstances. Inter Milan started selling his best players in that season. Chelsea, there was big kind of question marks over his relationship with Abramovich about the players that he wanted and the players they actually brought in. So it's not just about those clubs.
And is it throwing him under the bus, or is it like, unfortunately, you don't always get what you want? And Conte comes across as the sort of guy that's like a bit of a child, a bit of like a baby.
If you've just won Serie A with Hakimi and Lukaku and all these players, and they just start selling them because they're running out of money, is it
right?
I mean,
but they're running out of money. They're running out of money. So
maybe it's
the
not
reality
throwing
is
him under the bus, but it's not giving him the tools that he needs to work with.
But sometimes, mate, sometimes in life, like the conditions change, and there needs to be compromise. And he just comes across to me like as a guy who, if he doesn't get what he wants, he throws his toys out of the pram.
He's actually the actual myth about Conte is that just give him what he wants and he'll win. Because if you look at his time at Chelsea, he had Victor Moses as a wing back. He didn't want that. He only play. Conte's actually quite good with compromise. The problem is he doesn't realise that enough himself. Conte, I feel like because he's actually compromised
Didn't
well.
he sign Moses for Inter?
Yeah, he did. I'm saying at Chelsea he had Moses a wing back, and that wasn't even the case at the start of the season. He had to compromise with that. People like Marcus Alonso, like even Perisic. He didn't even want Perisic at the beginning. He loaned him out when he first went, and then he came back and played him a wing back, and he became one of the best wing backs in Serie A. So actually, Conte can actually be very good with compromise. The problem is he strives not to compromise because he demands the best. And I actually think sometimes
he refuses to play players.
Sometimes he's his own worst enemy in that aspect for Conte, to be honest, because he's actually quite good when he does compromise, but he doesn't want to. But he actually is good when he does. It's a weird thing.
So did he try and get himself sacked or not?
No, I don't think he did. No, I don't think he did. I don't think he did.
I think he did, but not for the reasons that I originally thought. Because Ben absolutely dropped the mic on me on that one.
I don't think he did for the fact that it was an after-match press conference and it was immediately after the result. I think if it had been a press conference scheduled for, I mean, forget that it's International Week, but if it had been a press conference scheduled for today with a game on Wednesday in mind, and he starts coming out with all this when you're not angry anymore 2 days after the event, I think then you go, yeah, you've planned this. I think it was a heat of the moment, but look, how many other people would get away with this? What I would say to you, again, my point I was making earlier, Tim Sherwood, right? Tim Sherwood was making noises about this, about being too friendly in the dressing room and people not being winners. And everyone just went, oh, that's because Tim Sherwood's a crap manager.
I loved that Tim Sherwood interview after that Chelsea game, by the way. I thought he was brilliant.
I did. So look, this isn't the first manager saying it, so I get it. But my only thing has been, look, I've said this before, guys, that I don't think it was ever a good fit. I completely don't think it was ever a good fit for him at the club. If he stays, he stays. I can't see him staying. But at the end of the day, we've got to be fair. The things we level at this manager seem to be very different to what was leveled at previous managers we've had that had the same things happen to them. Mm-hmm. But this guy seems to be, not from everyone, but this guy seems to get a completely free ride because people have now finally lost their patience. But AVB's football was this bad and everyone hated it, right? AVB. Nuno's football was horrific. Everyone hated it. Conte's football is terrible and it's, but he hasn't got his players. Well, hang on. AVB had a worse squad, right? Nuno had a much worse squad. Jose had a much worse squad. And fans were really happy to just say, out, 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 out. That's my only thing. Be consistent. If this is the case, then when the next manager starts doing poorly and not winning and the football's awful, also say, no, this manager needs to stay. Do you know what I mean? It can't be pick and choose for the same scenario because this manager's doing exactly what the others have done. But because he got top four, everyone thinks that it was some sort of miracle job. Do you know what I mean? So
we had no right to get top four last year.
Why not? Why not? It was an awful league.
Look at our first 6 months of the season under Nuno. We could barely have a shot on target, never mind score a goal.
But
we were terrible.
It was 3 months.
It was 3 months.
Fine. But you know what I mean? We were terrible that first 6. Harry Kane was hardly playing. I mean, he didn't score a goal for the first 4 months of the season. I mean, we had no right to finish in the top 4 last season.
The league was, come on, Ben. The league last year was very poor. You had Chelsea and Liverpool and City. Everyone else. I mean, the dogfight between Spurs at one point. It was Spurs, West Ham, United, and Arsenal, and no one could string 2 wins in a row to try and take it.
Yeah, but we won 10 of our last 14 games, didn't we?
Yeah, I know. What I'm saying is, before that, those teams couldn't string a win. He did well, but I don't see it as this miracle. I really don't. I don't see that it was some sort of miracle.
It was a very good job. He came in and got the job done. It was a very good job.
He did a good job. Yeah.
And yet, but this season, his squad is stronger, and yet he's in a worse, weaker position, right? But even on a net, even if you include Nuno's shit show, right? he's still 6 points behind where we were this time last year after the same amount of games. And so if you've got a stronger squad and you've got less points, I know there's obviously variables about what other clubs are doing. I mean, that is often not spoken about. When we talk about these things, we don't factor in the external variables. But do you not think that he's gone backwards this year? Well, not him. The club have gone backwards this year. And is that not on some part down to Conte?
Yes, it is on some part down to Conte. I completely agree with what you're saying, but I think there has been crazy circumstances for Spurs this season. Crazy circumstances.
A lot of injuries, yeah.
First of all, the injuries. When you're looking at Conte's personal circumstances as well, I don't think that you can underestimate how much of a factor that's going to play.
That's fair. Very fair.
The Paratici situation as well. I mean, we don't know what's going on with that. And
we're not 6 points down, Sean.
How many
are we?
We're not. After 28 games last season, we were 7th on 48 points. Now we're 4th on 48 points.
So we're level points. But when you're looking at the injuries that we've had, I mean, Romero...
my bad, I was showing a different
Romero first half of the season hardly played. Kulusevski hardly played. I mean, we've had crazy injuries this season that have not stopped. I think for the whole season, I think we've had a full squad once. And that was against Man City when we won 1-0.
Hang on, when we do this, we do plead the martyr like no one else has had injuries. We've had nowhere near the level of injuries of Liverpool and Chelsea. Nowhere near the level
doing
of
much
injury.
worse than us.
Right, because they actually had an injury crisis.
And so
we had maybe one or did we have an injury crisis?
Yes.
Who have we ever? How?
Because
Arsenal,
everyone's in agreement that our only competent defender is Cuti Romero. I mean, he was out for the majority of the first part of the season. When he was playing, he wasn't fully fit.
Okay, so one player.
Kulusevski, when Richarlison was injured as well, was both of them have had their bad injury problems.
Right.
Sonny has been completely off the boil. I think we've had mad injury problems throughout. I really do.
I don't think it's mad. I don't think it's anywhere
out
near
for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
Bissouma's out for the rest of the season. Lloris has been out, although he's been terrible. I mean, we've had mad injuries throughout the whole season.
I don't think it's any worse than any other club. I think we just think it is because we support Spurs. I truly don't. When you looked at the injury list of Liverpool and Chelsea, they had like 12 to 13 first-team players out injured, right? I think when I look at Spurs now, you look at this 11 that played at the weekend. Who's missing? Bentancur? Right? Bentancur, Lloris, but I don't see what difference that would have made. I thought Forster had a really good game. Bentancur. Who else?
Sessegnon.
Yeah, but that will make a difference.
I mean, Davis went down injured. Richarlison went down injured.
No. But that's in one game. What I mean in general, but
I do think that weirdly enough, I do think that Sessegnon's injury does make a difference in the fact that it limits your options elsewhere. If Perisic is playing as badly as he is, then you have to play Davies on the left wing back, and then you're forced into having a specific back three. There's no ability to rotate. Like I do think that Sessegnon's injury, as lackluster as he has been as a player for Tottenham, I do think his injury limits our options and forces us into other things that.
I agree. I agree, Sean. I just think that listen, I'm never one of these. I'm never one to blame VAR. I'm never one to blame injury. I think these things happen, right? I think these things happen, and unfortunately, listen, they do happen. So I don't think for any reason this season that's going to happen. Next season, you're going to have injuries. I don't see any of the top clubs that haven't had sustained injuries, right? But has it got better this year under Conte would be the question I'm asking. I'm not saying sack him, but I'm just asking.
No, we've gone backwards. We've definitely gone backwards this year.
I feel like the football's gone backwards. The actual standard of the football has gone backwards. At the time, what everyone said was that give the players a pre-season to learn how to play. I hate this saying. I can't believe I'm going to say it. To learn how to play Conte ball, and we'll see a different. But we've come into this season and we look worse. I don't understand how we look worse than last year.
It's because it's a stick-based manager only has a specific time. It's like a temporal impact. Okay, it's the laws of human nature. I've got a book on it. I read an entire book. Like the person that wrote the book on human nature, I've read his book, and people that generally criticize as a means to get a reaction, it has a short-term impact. People that use the carrot generally have a longer-term sustainability. If you look at what happened with Arsenal at the end of last season when they bottled it, Mikel Arteta ring-fenced the Arsenal team. Him and Edu took the responsibility. What happened to their bottle job? They went, it's on us. They might have criticised the team throughout the season, but when the shit show happened, they ring-fenced the players. And I think that Conte chooses a different tactic and points his finger at the players. And I think that the difference between the two ideologies of whether you use the carrot or the stick results in certain longevity outcomes. And this season, his players are playing for Arteta. And this season, I don't necessarily think that Conte's players will continue to play for Conte if he continues to do that.
Sean, with all this talk at the moment with they're talking about whether Conte will last the international break or potentially hire Ryan Mason. If that's the talk, though, what do you think that says about like the hierarchy in the boardroom? If we're deciding whether to keep Conte for now, then season or give it Mason as interim for the last 10 games.
What's the better outcome for Tottenham?
How are we in that situation where we're either keeping with a manager who?
Well, I don't think we need to be in that situation. I think that, like I say again, I think that the outburst was so weird. I go back to my initial 4 points, right? Like what he said, he was correct, but the timing of it was suspicious, and the outlet that he did it in, the way he did it was unnecessary. He could have, if he really cared, he could have done it in a different way. He could have come out and said something like, I'm really fed up. There's things going on with Tottenham, and there's things that I have to absolutely go to town with them about. But I'm not going to speak about it here because I'd be, it's not necessary for me to out and to say certain things in this certain circumstance. But trust me, there's going to be a conversation, and then they go and have a crisis talk, and everybody that needs to be a part of that, whether it's the ownership, the Paratici, everybody gets into a room and they scream it out. And you can get behind that system. You can get behind that outcome. But doing it in the way that he did it, I think, like I said at the start, I think it only has negative outcomes. And if one of those negative outcomes is a situation where you have Ryan Mason in charge for the last 10 games of the season or Conte, then I think either one of those choices results in Tottenham finishing outside the top 4. And I think finishing outside the top 4 entirely impacts and affects our ability to do business in the summer. And I think that next season is going to be an absolute and it will be incredibly likely that next season will be an even more frustrating season because we won't necessarily have the money, because this owner doesn't want to, put money in their pocket, and they want to utilize the, make ends meet philosophy. And not having Champions League football means that we can't go and sign, if not to Saba's point, a Guardiola or a Bastoni, at least a Kim Min-jae, right? Kim Min-jae's got a £43 million release clause, and part of that release clause is limited to only teams outside of the EU, which means the Premier League or teams outside of Europe. So Tottenham Hotspur could go and get, absent Napoli getting him done on a new contract, you could go and get Kim Min-jae. You get Kim Min-jae in the midfield 3 next season at 43 million quid for a player of his caliber. A lot of Tottenham's problems go away. But 43 million.
Why would Kim Min-jae leave title-winning, potentially Champions League-winning Napoli and come here?
Money. Napoli's bust. Napoli's like every other team.
This is
in
my
Italy,
point.
They're all broke.
This is my point about signing top players. But everyone in the chat's telling me just pay enough money and you get them.
Well, I think you do. Kim Min-jae's 26 years old. He's got.
But he's going to have bigger suitors than Tottenham Hotspur.
Manchester United and Liverpool also want him, apparently.
Yeah,
Manchester United have got Varane and Sandro Martinez, so he'll be a squad player at best at Manchester United, right? Tottenham Hotspur, he comes in
Liverpool?
and immediately. I mean, they've got options as well, but Liverpool are in no better a position than Tottenham right now.
They are massively. They always are. Of course they are.
They're eighth in the league. They're eighth in the league.
Yeah, but Sean, that's so right now.
Sorry, but if Tottenham get in the top 4 and Liverpool don't, Liverpool is still a bigger pool than us.
Absolutely.
Maybe, but Liverpool have a stricter wage structure than Tottenham do. So if it comes down to it, because you answered the question, why would he leave Napoli? He's not going to leave if he wants to, because Napoli are doing brilliant things, right? So Napoli are going to win the Serie A, and they're probably going to get to the Champions League final. If the guy is drawn by other factors, i.e. money, then there's a chance. I'm not saying that Tottenham are going to get him. I'm just saying that there's...
I just can't... I'm sorry. Okay, I can't see it that Liverpool are a bigger draw than us.
Regardless, we're getting off the topic, right? That doesn't really matter about Kim Min-jae. I'm just saying that the point that that Tottenham can... That finishing 4th, the point was about Ryan Mason or Antonio Conte. Finishing 4th is a big deal. And because of Conte's situation and what he said yesterday, for the club, for being able to generate the revenue, to be able to have a transfer budget to fix the holes that exist in the club this summer. And those are, we need 2 centre backs, we need a creative player. You know, we've got Destiny Udogie, we've got Pedro Porro, but we might need a striker to replace Harry Kane. Those problems are infinitely more solvable by having Champions League on offer and the additional 50, 60 million quid that gets into the transfer budget. And my point was, forget Kim Min-jae, my point was that finishing 4th versus finishing 6th or 7th or 8th, which is entirely possible right now, if you keep Conte and the players down tools, or if you sack Conte and you have Ryan Mason, who's got absolutely no gravitas or no brand or no reason for the players to play for him. Both of those outcomes of not finishing 4th are more likely as a consequence of what Conte said. That's all I'm saying.
I've got a different way of looking at that. How many times have we finished 4th and still not addressed any of these problems? Why does it matter now?
That's a separate issue, mate.
I don't think it is. I don't think it is.
That's not the point he's making, Sava. I think the point he's making is that if we get top 4, it gives us the option to be able to do so.
Exactly.
But
if you finish 4th, you have the money. You might misspend the money. Sava. I'll come to you now. You might misspend the money, but at least you have the option to spend it if you finish 4th. If you don't, then you don't have the money. You can't screw the money up anyway.
I see that, but I think every year as a Spurs fan, we sit here, don't we, in different chats, and you always hear 4th. We've got to get 4th so we can attract players, Champions League, and we never actually do. And it's just kind of like. I'm for one have said I don't care if we finish top 4 or not. What's it matter? We've had Champions League football this year, been thoroughly underwhelming in every single one of. I test anybody to tell me a Champions League game that they really, really enjoyed that we played this year.
Sav, you say it doesn't matter, but you'll moan in the summer if there's no money to pay for anyone.
No, hang on, Sean.
I enjoyed the ones I was drunk for.
But Sean, when you say that when there's no money to pay for anyone, we've bought players before when we've not been in the Champions League, and they're the same caliber as the ones we buy when we're in the Premier League. In the Champions League. We can't have it both ways. Like, great, finishing 4th is great if you use. Let me put it this way: if Newcastle finish 4th, they use it as a platform, right? Newcastle will use it as a platform to kick on, right? Dare I say it? Probably even Brighton would, right? Yeah. Liverpool would. We get 4th and we use it as a platform to what? We don't use it as a platform for anything. This year, let's be fair, the run we've had in this Champions League, no disrespect to some of these teams, Sporting Lisbon, Marseille, Frankfurt, that Milan team, and how many of them did we lose? How many of them did we fail to win?
Yeah, most.
What does it matter? I just don't think it matters anymore. This top 4 narrative is a brand new thing in football in the last sort of 10, 15 years where everyone sees it as a measure of success. For me, there's so many more issues at the club that need to be addressed.
I'd rather it be seen as a measure of opportunity.
Yeah, but I'd rather the club concentrated on building an ethos, building a strategy, building a plan, building an academy. I'd rather we started getting all that stuff in the background sorted than literally going, there you go, we've succeeded, we've got top 4, we've got top 4 money, it's great, we're in the Champions League.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean anything to me.
All right, let's move on to the last topic about Antonio Conte. Before I do, let's just get into a few super chats before we move on. Mike Hellman says that this situation is just so stale and the fans are powerless. We deserve better. Hashtag come on you Spurs. The Joracle says he's directing at you, Sava. He says Conte in and Tottenham going about business as usual is never going to work. He was supposed to change our culture from losing to winning. Any response to that, Sava?
Listen, everyone's got absolutely every right to be Conte in or Conte out. Cool. I'm not. Listen, am I Conte out? Yes, but the majority of why I'm Conte out, and Sean will tell you this, is because the guy hasn't signed a new contract. The guy is walking away in the summer. So when people tell me I have to back the manager, why am I backing a manager that at the moment isn't my club's manager next year? Isn't that fair enough? Why am I backing something that is ending?
No, that is fair enough. Absolutely. RM13 with the last super chat says, context matters. Under AVB, we were top 4 aspiring club. Our expectations are different, hence different criticism. Sava needs to learn how to analyse.
Read that for me again. Read
He
that for me
says,
again.
context matters. Under AVB, we are a top 4 aspiring club. Our expectations are different, hence different criticism.
But sorry, then if we were a top 4 aspiring club then, and we're a top 4 club now, surely the criticism should be harsher for Conte because we're a better club with better players. So yes, context does matter, but you've used it in the complete wrong way round. But good attempt. That was good. That was very good. Look, I listen, guys. I need to jump in like 4 minutes, so I don't want to be rude.
Okay.
But look, I just want to say, I know. Listen, everyone, you've got some great people in your chat. You know, it's been really, really great chatting with you. I just think that look, we all want what's best for Spurs. We all do, right? There's no need to be rude to each other in the chat. Just it's difference of opinions. I want what's best. Sean wants what's best. Ben and Sim do. We've all probably got a different roadmap of how we get to that, but we all want Spurs to be successful. That
Correct.
I don't think anyone doesn't. So just be a little bit nicer to each other. But guys, thanks for having me. I've really, really enjoyed it.
Sava, thanks for
Cheers,
coming
mate.
on, my friend. Thanks for coming on. And
Thank
hopefully
you.
we'll do it again soon.
Okay, cheers, guys. Thank you.
And
Nice
there
one,
were 3.
Sava.
And then there were 3. So let's go on to this last topic about Conte. I think I know what your answer is going to be, Sean, but
Yeah,
is
go on.
Conte still the right man for the job?
No.
All
No,
right,
he's not.
let's move on to the next topic.
I can't listen. I just think that he's made a rod for his own back. I thought that what he said, like I said a million times, maybe right to say it, wrong context, wrong situation, wrong outcomes. I personally, as a personal thing, I can't stand his football, and I don't like his. I've never liked his press conferences before this one. I've said it all the way back from last year. I think that his rigidity as a manager is unhelpful. His trust in players that deserve to be rotated and deserve to have more of a meritocracy approach don't get given it. His lack of curiosity about players that we've signed, that whether or not he wanted them or not, he should be utilizing them more. I don't think he's helpful. And I don't think he's the right guy for the job. I think he's the right guy for, like, as we've been saying it on this channel and loads of others, but I think that he's the right guy for a different club in a different situation. I think we need someone who, first and foremost, is grateful to be here, that wants to, be a part of it, not talk with they rather than we or I. And for me personally, I don't have any particular love for Antonio Conte. So what happened on Saturday night for me cemented the fact that I think that he shouldn't be here next season. Whether he's here for the rest of the season is different. But yeah.
Sean, do you there's conflicting reports at the moment about Antonio Conte, about how much support he retains of the Spurs squad. The Athletic and some others reporting that they get from Spurs insiders that that the atmosphere, some Spurs players say the atmosphere is close to toxic, and that they don't a lot of them would be happy to see him leave immediately. But we've just recently heard in the last hour or so that Romano said that there are some Spurs players that actually back Conte, and that they actually agree with Conte in a lot of what he's saying, and that they agree that some of the players don't want to push themselves to actually become winners and also do lack that mentality. So, of all those things coming out, like what do you read into that? Is it a PR battle? What do you think?
No, I think that I've been thinking it for a while. Like, if you go back to Richarlison's outburst after. I forget which game it was. Was it Milan when he came out and said the things he said about having a terrible season, and then he had to kind of apologize and retract. And I think that there's a lot of there's a bit of a culture. I know that the other players that are doing it right now are not necessarily part of Tottenham right now. You got Harry Winks saying his things, bits and pieces last week. Brian Hill saying the same thing. Like, I think that there's this weird culture where things are coming out to us that are getting leaked to the media that shouldn't ever be happening. And if there's a divide amongst the players where some players are saying, "Nah, get Conte out," other players are saying, "No, actually, he's got a point," then those players are pointing at the other players. it just, for me, it screams of a disharmonious dressing room, and that is a massive problem. Whether or not those, like, if you've got a situation where people are at each other's throats, or people are at the, people were talking behind the back of the manager, and the manager's coming out saying things, it just doesn't scream like like there's any continuity or any kind of harmony. Like I say, within the ecosystem of Tottenham, that's a problem. And I think that you need a manager right now to come in and come on, guys, like, you're better, that like the sum is not as good as the parts. And that to me is another issue. I know that next season they've got the summer, everything else we can figure it out in due course, but we've got 10 games to play. And the difference between finishing 4th and 7th or 8th, which is possible right now, is going to be massively instrumental and impactful into what happens for us in the summer and next season. And so, to me personally, whether or not, Fabrizio Romano is right in what he's saying, or whether the Guardian is right in what they're saying around most of the players are happy for him to go, and they think it's a case of he's either going or gone. In any event, it stresses. The only thing it stresses to me is that there is massive discontent in the dressing room. And as a manager, you have to be in control of that. And if you're not, then there's a problem that needs to be solved.
Sean, thinking about like what Kane was saying, like when he left, when Jose Mourinho left, like a couple of years ago, saying he had like a great relationship with Mourinho. Mourinho wanted the Spurs players to show a bit more responsibility and leadership on the pitch, and that's maybe where they fell flat. And that's what Kane was saying. He agreed with Mourinho. Do you reckon Kane's one of the players that agrees with Conte?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, absolutely. I think Kane is probably one of those people that looks at the situation and thinks that I'm doing everything I can and the rest of you aren't. Okay, and I definitely think that Kane probably wants to, elevate himself and be surrounded by managers that he looks at and thinks are elite, in his world of elitism. But at the same time, if I was Harry Kane, I'd be knocking on the door of Antonio Conte's managerial window this morning and saying, were you talking about me when you were talking about selfishness? Because if he was speaking specifically about that game, that there was selfishness being displayed, if you're going to be honest, there was plenty of opportunities in that particular game where Harry Kane looked incredibly selfish, where he could have passed the ball to Sonny or Decky and didn't 2 or 3 times, chose to take the shot instead, ballooned it over the bar. And so whilst I agree with you that Harry Kane is probably on Conte's side, when Conte says things like the players are selfish, and as I said earlier, I don't think that he's talking about the back line. I think he's talking about the forward line as to why we haven't scored enough goals this season in certain areas, certain games, Sheffield United, Wolves, all those things. There were so many situations where the forwards weren't working in chemistry with each other. I think that was a specific finger-pointing session towards the forwards. And so, yeah, I think that Harry Kane may be generally on the same side as Conte, but at the same time, Conte called out selfishness, and I think that he was aiming that at the forwards. I don't know do you guys think that or not, or do you disagree?
I'm not too sure, to be honest. I mean, I came away first and foremost from that game thinking that Harry Kane was overly selfish in that game, in terms of, he had many opportunities to play in Son, to play in Kulusevski, where he just took shots and it was blocked shots or over the bar, whatever it may be. But I got a feeling it was a bit of a collective. It wasn't just about the forward line, not just about the defence. I think it was just about everyone, to be honest, not being able to fight for each other, maybe a bit about the stuff about in the front line that you're talking about as well. So I don't think it's an either or. Again, I think it's a both, to be honest.
Because I think those chances, Sean, they were like at 1-1. So we went on to be 3-1 up. So I don't think it makes sense for him to complain about selfishness when we were 3-1 up with 15 minutes to go and then we couldn't hang on to the lead. Like, was he saying we should have been 4 and 5-1 up? Was that what he was saying about selfishness? I think he was more saying about the selfishness of the players not to dig in with each other and battle to kind of make sure we get over the line and win the game. That's what I took anyway from it.
What was the point about selfishness? I don't understand what he's referencing. Just like I don't understand that, he said after I forget the game when we were 3-1 up, it was a while back, and he was like, you have to go for the throat, you have to go for the kill in that situation. And then in this situation, when we're 3-1 up or 3-2 up, he makes defensive substitutions. I personally agree with his substitutions on the day. I thought that they were forced. Agreed. For the most part. Yeah. I didn't actually have any issue with Antonio Conte's tactical performance or whatever during the game, but a lot of people did. A lot of people were saying, why did you make the decisions you did? And And so again, I just think that there's like a little bit of always contradiction in some of the things that he does and what he says. And when it comes to the selfishness, it was a massive statement point in his press conference, but it was unclear what he was talking about. Like, you make generalizations, the players are selfish. What does that mean? Are you talking about specifics? Are you talking about like like you're not passing when you should, you're shooting when you shouldn't, or are you talking about? I mean, I don't know how else you can interpret the word selfishness.
Look, we're never going to know exactly what he means, but I mean, like, everyone can interpret it in their own way. You're interpreting it in terms of the front line. Sim saying in terms of maybe the back line and midfield not really working for each other.
No, it could be the forward. It could be the forward line not working hard enough as well. It could be, but I just think
that's not how you're interpreting it.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that he's not directing it at the forward line. I'm saying he's directing it at everyone not working for each other. I'm not saying he could even be pointing at the forwards who are not running back. Maybe that's what he's saying. But I don't think he's saying it from an offensive point of view. Is my point. I think he's saying it as a collective defensive unit. We're too selfish and we're not helping each other out. That's what I'm trying to say, basically.
Well, look, let's. I just want to make my comment back on the original question: Is Conte still the right man for the job? And I'd like
depends what the job is, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, job is managing Tottenham Hotspur. And look, I think that as much as I want to sit here and say he is the right man for the job, I think with all the circumstances involved, with Conte being able to work with the board, with these players now being able to work with Conte, with the ambitions of the club and Conte not aligning, I don't think he's the right man for the job anymore. As much as I want to sit here and as much as I do want him to sign that contract and be here for the foreseeable future, I just can't see that happening, and I just don't see there being a viable option here. I really don't. And so in that case, I got to say, no, he's not the right man for the job. Would you agree with that, or...?
Yeah, it depends what we want. If we want a manager who's going to help us win a trophy and give him tools to compete with the other teams in the Premier League, like Man City and whatever, then I think he is the right man for the job. But I don't think that's what we want. We want to rebuild. We want to build a team to eventually and sign young players that can eventually compete. And for that, I don't think he's the right man. And if that's the direction we're going to go in, which is increasingly looking like the direction we need to go in, then I can't sit here and say that Conte is the right man for rebuild, because that's never what he's been. That's never how he's approached teams. But if we wanted to sit down in the summer and say, look, we're gonna go all out for Bastoni, we're gonna get James Maddison or something, we're gonna sign some really expensive, high quality talent with experience, then I do think he can be the man. But that's not what we're gonna do. That's not the job remit. That's not the job. So I don't think he is the right man for the job we need.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Anything else on that one, Sean?
No, I agree with you guys. Like for me, like I've said 1,000 times, people that know my channel know my content, the foundation for me always has to be attractive football. If I'm not seeing that, then I can't tolerate whatever the process is. And under Conte, I'm not seeing it. Under Mourinho, I wasn't seeing it. So I want to see someone come in, and I personally would be far more patient around a rebuild, even if there was hiccups along the way, and of course there will be. But if the guy that comes in can play or wants to play good, solid, attractive football first and foremost, then I will be forever content with that system. That for me is why I started supporting Tottenham. And if I don't see it, then I'm not happy. So yes, he's not the right guy. And if there is a project to come, I'm happy for it. But if we sack Conte or Conte leaves, and if they bring in another defensive manager, and that's the project, I'll be miserable for however long that project lasts. I want to see an attractive philosophy first and foremost.
Sure. Let me ask you this: like, if a lot of the if it is true, like some of the other senior players like Kane and like Højbjerg or something are on Conte's side, and then there's a large section, another other section of the squad who we don't know who it is, but who are not on Conte's side, like. What would you like to see the club do about that? Let's say like Kane's like was to say like I would be more likely to stay if we keep Conte and back him or stuff like that. And a lot of the senior players, maybe some of our better players would feel that way. Like, would you rather us like follow with them and then maybe cut out a lot of the players who are unhappy with Conte, or would you like us to kind of stick with the players who are saying that he's creating a toxic atmosphere and get rid of Conte instead? Like, I think that kind of question.
So is it
like,
more like Conte in and Kane in, or if Conte's out, then Kane's gone as well.
Yeah,
Or
kind
would I
of.
rather?
And then you're siding with players who are kind of maybe more weak-minded in a way.
I think that at some point, I'm very much aware of the fact that at some point that Harry Kane would have played his last game for the club, right? So whether it's in 3 months or 3 years, at some point Tottenham Hotspur have to get over the fact that Harry Kane is going to not be here, and that we have to figure out that future. If Harry Kane says I will stay if Conte stays, and Conte says I will stay and I'm signing a new contract. As I said earlier, right, like everything, the fallback on this whole thing, if in 2 weeks' time you find out that Conte signed the new contract for 2-3 years, and he's obviously then got on board with the manager, with the chairman, and everyone's singing from the same hymn sheet, then I'll get behind it. I'll back it. I won't, and I hope that that the people that say, give Conte the right tools and he does play attractive football, I hope that we can see that at Tottenham. But ultimately, I don't really care either way, mate. I want to see good football. If that good football comes with Conte and Harry Kane over the next 3 years, I'll get behind it. But if Conte is never going to play good football, then I don't care about Harry Kane leaving either. If we can get 100 million quid for Harry Kane and Conte's out the door, and we can reinvest it into an Ivan Toney or whoever else, and then go and fix other issues, at some point Harry Kane is not going to play for Tottenham. I want to see, for me, football. That's all I care about more than anything else.
Well, that leads us very nicely on to the last topic of the day. But before we do that, let's just get through these super chats. RM13 replying to Sava saying, sorry, Sava, I didn't mean to be rude. Apologies. So if you're watching, Sava, there's your apology. Jory says, Conte is not the right manager for Levy. Agreed. But it should go, Levy is not the right chairman for Conte and anyone else with football ambitions in Tottenham Hotspur. Would you agree with that, Sean?
About Daniel Levy? Yeah, look, like I said, mate, honestly, I get like pigeonholed into this. I'm Levy in because I'm not extreme Levy out. I'm not Levy in. I'm happy for him to go. For me, I'm happy for that. I'm happy for Levy to sell and move on. But what I do worry about is who's next. And there's no gap that the problems at Tottenham Hotspur are not about spending money. The problems at Tottenham Hotspur are about how you spend it and the attraction of the development of youth. And there's absolutely no guarantee that you go and bring in a Qatari or someone from the Emirates or someone from Abu Dhabi or wherever else in the kind of the sugar daddy end of the world, or if you go and get an American that comes in and whatever that structure of debt looks like, there's no guarantee that any of the major issues at Tottenham change just because Daniel Levy's out the way. There's no guarantee that suddenly you get better youth development. There's no guarantee that you suddenly identify and acquire better talent. All of those things are unknowns. And so when people say, again, I just find it a lazy argument that people say, the problems exist over 20, 15, 12 different managers, whatever it is. Therefore, because I don't have any other reason, it has to be the lowest common denominator, which is the owner. I don't believe it. Does Daniel Levy need to have a better risk tolerance? 100%. He needs to get on board with the fact that inflation in football, in the prices of football players, is accelerating far quicker than his ability to generate it. £60 million on Richarlison 7 years ago could have got you one of the best players in the world. This year or last year, it gets you an average player. So, I don't think Daniel Levy's the right guy for the job, but I don't know who is. And just because you don't like him, be better. Be wary of the devil you don't know. That's what I'm saying.
All right. Next one is from Leon Palmer saying, quick hypothetical. If it was Kane, Son, Bentancur, Romero, Kula and Ritchie calling for Conte to stay, what would you think? I mean, pretty similar to what you just answered, but Sim, you want to take this one?
Yeah, I mean, if it's a case that they're calling for Conte to stay and we're willing to kind of mould that mentality around them and maybe cut a lot of the players who are unhappy with Conte's methods, then I would be happy to go ahead with that. But it depends about how many of these players are calling Conte toxic and wanting him out immediately. Depends who they are and stuff like that, and it depends a lot on if we can kind of get what we need from this ownership to build around Conte. But I don't know. It's a lot of moving parts, that question, to be honest. But obviously, that would be a lot more positive in Conte's corner if those are the kind of players who are on his side.
Okay. Rich Frith saying Conte went far enough to get sacked. He wanted it. I mean, we've covered that one. Sam Boy saying he clearly means when he says selfishness, these players don't care about the club. They don't care about winning. They care about themselves. I mean, that's exactly what he said, didn't it?
Yeah. These players don't care about the club. Yeah, I guess maybe that's what he's alluding to. Maybe it's not specifically about actions on the pitch on that specific game. Maybe it's a culture thing.
Maybe.
So that's what he's saying.
And the last one is from Jory saying Conte is the right and Levy is the wrong man.
Just a bit of breaking, not breaking news, but news filtering out Sky Sports. Sky Caver has been live on Sky Sports reporting that Conte does not expect to be sacked over the international break by Tottenham. That's what he's reporting. That Conte expects to still be in a job.
Weird one, isn't it? Weird one.
Runs back. So that's the latest development.
What does Levy expect to happen then? Like, one thing you have to talk about with acknowledge with Daniel Levy and the board is that they're very calculating, right? They're always working out, the risk profile, the probability cost of this or that. But what does he think is going to happen? Like, do they actually think that the chances are better that we'll finish top 4? Because if that's all they care about. Do they actually think that after what he said, that there's a better chance of the players playing for him than they do somebody else?
Depends how much of the support of the squad he retains, I guess. I don't know.
We shall wait and see, won't we? All will be revealed, Shawnee. All will be revealed. But let's move on to the last topic of the day, and it's about Harry Kane. And we heard from... Who did we hear it from today?
The Times, I think.
Second. Yeah, Gary Jacob from The Times was saying that Spurs will want a $100 million upfront fee to sell Harry Kane this summer. So, Sean, do you think we will get that upfront fee this summer? Do you think anyone will pay that $100 million for Harry Kane that we want?
I think probably not. I don't think so. No, I think the only realistic target, the only realistic option for that would probably be for Manchester United. And I'd be very surprised if they'll pay £100 million for a player in his last year of his contract. I know they paid top dollar for the ex-Arsenal player, I forget his name, a few years ago.
Sanchez.
And Sanchez as well, right? So, but it was different money. If Daniel Levy's asking price is 100 million quid, I don't think anyone will pay it. You know, if Daniel Levy had an asking price of 60, 70 million quid, if that was what he thought, if Harry Kane turns around and says, look, I'm done, so you either sell me or I run my contract down, then if Daniel Levy's asking price is 100 million, I don't think anyone's going to pay it. No.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking the same thing. I think the fact that he is going to be turning 30, the fact that he has only a year left on his contract, and he's going to be running it down. I just don't see a team, unless they're really desperate to beat the competition of next season. I don't see it. I don't see it being likely. As well, the fact that I believe personally that Kane could easily go into his mid-30s playing at the top of the game, but whether they want to take that risk by spending 100 million is a very big risk. We've seen it go wrong when Real Madrid, they spent 100 million on Hazard when he had 1 year left of his contract, and it went and that fell completely flat. I think as well, if you're Man United and you're spending 100 million on Harry Kane with the year left on his contract, you're like putting a lot of pressure on yourself to win the league that next season, to be honest, because you could have waited another year and got him on a free. So you're saying it's worth it to get him in a year early for 100 million. Why it can only really be worth it if you win something significant in that year.
It's not worth it. Not worth it financially either way, right? Like if you finish first in the Premier League, obviously it's worth the title, but in terms of financial recuperation in that one season, there's not a big enough difference between first and second in terms of prize money that you're actually going to recuperate it. The only difference, the thing that would make it easier for me to get on board the palatable aspect of Man United paying it would be if the Qataris came in and El Thani said, I want to make a splash, I want to come in there. And if that happens, if that takeover happens immediately, like in the next 2 months, which is, may or may not happen, then maybe they want to make a splash, and on that basis maybe they'll pay it. But I think that what they're doing
as well, because it's up front as well. They said they want 100 million up front, no installments as well.
Yeah, but they paid 71 million for or 75 million for Casemiro, right? And he's what, 32, 31?
No, he's what, 28, isn't he?
Casemiro,
I
31.
thought Casemiro,
No,
I thought
30.
Casemiro's 31. So it's not about his age. It's what would put them off would just be the kind of the fact that he's got 1 year left.
Now, yeah. He's
31.
now.
Yeah, just turned 31 last month.
So it's not going to be his age that puts them off paying the 100 million, because if they're willing to pay that 70 million for Casemiro and they've seen the impact of him, they might well pay it irrespective of Harry Kane's age. What it comes down to is whether they're willing to pay it thinking that they can get it for free the year later.
But if they're going into next season and they earmark that, maybe a centre forward is that key position that they do need to go and win that title next season, then maybe 100 million doesn't seem like so much if they think they can actually win the league with that one player next season.
Yeah, and like I say, I don't think it comes down to finances. Like, they will finish in the top 4 next season, in my opinion, if they have Harry Kane. So and they might not if they don't. With the resurgence of potentially Chelsea, the resurgence of Liverpool, maybe the threat of Newcastle, who knows what will happen with Tottenham. But so the top 4 conversation, Man United are currently still, they don't know whether they're going to finish top 4 right now. With Harry Kane, they're definitely going to finish in the top 4. So they'll get that kind of financial. They'll definitely get that financial reassurance. And I don't think that there's a massive difference in terms of prize money from finishing first or second or third. It's not that significantly different. So to them, it would be whether the 100 million quid is worth the prestige of winning the trophy. And I think that conversation, therefore, is not about finance. And if it's not about finance, then it's an easier thing to be palatable if the owner doesn't care about money. And therefore, it's incredibly more likely that Harry Kane would go to Man United if the Qataris are in charge versus the outgoing Glazers.
Yeah, we're saying, they're saying 100 million now, but that might not be the case as the window maybe progresses. Maybe Harry Kane pushes for that transfer again. Maybe he puts in a transfer request. If he does do that, then what do you think the threshold is for Daniel Levy and Spurs? Because surely they'll have to lower their asking prices if that happens.
Has Daniel Levy ever given an inch? He's never given an inch, has he? He's got his number. I think to him it's more about pride than anything else. He doesn't want to give an inch. He never gave an inch in the Berbatov deal. He never gave an inch in the Modric deal. He never gave an inch in the Bale deal. All of those things, and how many times have we missed out on players by never giving an inch on the incomings when it comes to people like Jack Grealish, etc. So I think Daniel Levy will have his number. Which again, as much as I'm considered someone who defends Daniel Levy and stuff, one of the things I always criticize him for is that this idea that he's this master negotiator. He's not a master negotiator, because a negotiator means that you have some sort of compromise. You figure out the best way.
He's a master tyrant, is what you're saying.
He has a line in the sand. My number is this. You either meet it or you don't. And that's how he handles it. I don't think that's a master negotiator. I think that's just a line in the sand guy. So I think that he'll have his number, and if Man United pay it or don't, that will determine whether or not Kane leaves. I don't think Kane will go to Chelsea. I don't think Kane will go to Arsenal. I don't think Liverpool would have the money, and I don't think that Kane will go to Europe.
Gary Jacob is also saying that Tottenham are remaining quietly confident that Kane will be at the club next season. Do you see that being a realistic option with Conte, assuming Conte goes out the door in the summer or before?
As I said earlier, it depends massively on who's the next guy. I think because
we all said Conte was his last chance saloon after Jose Mourinho and all that kind of stuff. Which manager can come in and bring Kane back on side?
Pochettino.
You really think so? I don't think he does. I don't think he does.
Pochettino said he had a wonderful relationship with Harry Kane. If Tottenham were to go after a project manager and looked at someone like Amorim, for example, from Sporting,
but Kane has a lovely relationship with Ryan Mason as well. Doesn't mean he's going to make him stay at the club.
Well, true. Okay, fine, fair enough, fair point. But I'm saying you asked the question, is there any manager that may give him? Bearing in mind that Harry Kane also, his family's very happy, allegedly very happy, very settled in London. There's more than just football. And more than just the desire to win trophies that are being the
London thing with Harry Kane. I don't buy that at all.
No?
No, he tried to push to go to Man City 2 years ago. So, he would have no worries about going back up to Manchester again. So I don't see the London thing being a thing.
Okay, well, at least on some. Sorry, someone's at my door, but whatever.
Pompey play.
At least some people are saying that it's a thing, right? And maybe it's more of a thing to stay in England than it is to go abroad. I don't know, but for me personally, I would just say that if there is a manager that he would play for, then I would say Pochettino is one of the options. If Tottenham were to go and sack Conte, or Conte was to walk away, and Tottenham were to bring in some younger guy like an Amorim, I think that would be the nail in the coffin for Kane. So maybe it's not so much around are there managers that he would play for, but it's probably managers that he wouldn't play for, just like there wasn't one in Nuno. Maybe the young stuff isn't going to excite him. Maybe an Enrique, maybe a Pochettino. Maybe that's enough for him to get behind. But
yeah, it's a question is how do we avoid him getting back to the same headspace he was in 2 years ago?
I can't see
And it's just going to be different. Yeah, I think it's going to be near impossible. Like shy of appointing Guardiola, I don't see how we do it.
Exactly. Like once you burn Mourinho, burn Poch, and burn Conte, in Harry Kane's headspace, he's like, where else are they going to turn? Like, I can't see any manager coming in to bring Kane on side. I really can't, unless it is like a Klopp or a Guardiola.
Yeah, I think you're right, but again, I don't necessarily always think that the tier one, maybe Harry Kane. Do we ever talk about whether Harry Kane's happy playing the system that Conte's asked of him? No, we're assuming that Harry Kane is the guy in the dressing room who is on board. He's the person that when you said Fabrizio Romano, and that there's certain players that agree with Conte. We're assuming that Harry Kane's one of them.
Just basing it on that he was one of the ones who was still backing Jose even at the end. So why wouldn't he be the ones backing Conte?
Oh, because it might, like I say, it might not necessarily be about the caliber of the manager. It might be the content of the character of the manager, or it might be, does Jose Mourinho? Did Jose Mourinho put his arm around a guy and big him up? Does Conte do that? I don't know. We don't know how Conte interacts with the players on a day-to-day basis. And I'm sure there's differences.
Video call when he was out ill when Kane broke the record. I mean, he was super proud of him, and giving him his congratulations, showing him a lot of love. I'm sure them two get on just fine.
Mate, probably, but that is anecdotal evidence. All I'm saying is that we don't know that I'm speculating here, but we don't know what the ins and outs are, and that there might be some frustration in Harry Kane's head that he's being asked to do a role that he doesn't want to do. Maybe he can see a bigger picture and want to play in a different system for the last 3 years. I'm not saying this is not my opinion.
He's on track for more goals than he has for many, many years.
Right.
So I think he's clearly playing well. He's not down tools.
I'm not saying he's not playing well, but maybe he doesn't enjoy the system. Maybe he wants to play more expansive football. Again, speculation. I don't know.
Maybe, but I think the evidence would suggest that he's one of the players that's fully on board with Conte and bought into it.
Well, yeah. I mean, okay, but.
All right, guys. I think we're going to leave it there. That's all the topics we have for you today. Big up to Sava, who was on early. Obviously, he had to leave a bit early. So everyone go and subscribe to his channel, Football Heritage. It is linked in the description and also the title of the live stream. And Sean, everyone go and subscribe to his channel. Anything exciting coming up on your channel soon, Sean?
No, nothing much. Usual, same old stuff. Take my dog out for a walk, get my thoughts off my chest, and the occasional live stream. I'd love to have you guys on one day, but
just ask the question, Sean. We'll be there.
We'll drive up and go on the walk with you.
Exactly. I'll bring my dog. We can go on a double dog walk.
Double date. Love it. Yeah. Fantastic. Cheers, guys. Thanks for having me. It's been fun.
No problem. Shawnee. Great to have you as always. And also a big up to all of you guys out there that's made this show possible. A lot of viewers, a lot of super chats. So big up to all of you. Thank you very much for all your support. And we'll see you all next time. Like, subscribe, and comment. And as always, come on, you Spurs.